Dopamine detox, a word that sounds very daunting and intimidating, taking you back to a time where life was much simpler. Phones didn't exist, computers didn't exist, and most importantly, the internet didn't exist. To what seemingly both looks and sounds like the Stone Age, where the only thing you could do was lie in bed and stare at the ceiling. But it's not quite that. According to Wikipedia, dopamine detox is a digital detox involving temporarily abstaining from addictive technologies such as social media, internet gaming, and listening to music. It's basically a form of fasting where you stay away from certain activities that you would typically enjoy for a specific amount of time. So, here are the rules. During a dopamine detox, you're not allowed to be on your phone, computer, play video games, watch porn, have sex, masturbate, drink caffeine or sugary drinks, hang out with friends, and listen to music, etc. Those are just some of the things that you know that you're not allowed to do on a detox, a dopamine detox. But you get the point. You're supposed to do as little as possible, especially the things that release a lot of dopamine. There is, however, something that you are allowed to do, and that's what you can call being bored. Fortunately, I'm not going to be completely isolated in this room, but this is probably where I will be spending most of the 12 hours. Just as a disclaimer, I am going to allow myself to both eat and drink water and journal throughout the day, since I'm going to do this for a complete 12 hours. But other than that, basically nothing. There's really not a lot to do, and that's the whole point. To stay away from certain activities that we constantly do in our everyday life, keeping our mind occupied at every given moment. And our phone is usually the device that we like to fill any boring time with, but not this time. Now we know what a dopamine detox is, it raises the question, why do you want one? For the last 10 days, I've had one of the worst and longest lasting calls in a good while. And I don't know about you, but typically for me, this means a lot of screen time. Even though it doesn't make me feel any better, and does the exact opposite, give me painful headaches, it does one thing, and that is speeding up time, in a way. So, in short, being sick to me basically means that I've been watching a whole lot of YouTube and Netflix. And this probably isn't the thing that I needed the most, for my head to be filled up with even more rubbish and nonsense than before. Because of this, I really don't feel like I've had the ability to rest as much as I probably needed while being sick. So I decided to give myself another shot doing just that. The goal of a dopamine detox is to reset an overstimulated brain in order to get back to normal or lower dopamine levels. I'm not sure though if this is an accurate representation when it comes to the science behind it, but this is how I have interpreted it's supposed to work. So, what are your expectations when it comes to this dopamine detox? To be totally honest, I've read everything from people claiming it to be completely life-changing to it being a complete scam. But in general, there seems to be a lot of people that get some benefit from doing it, like improved focus, improved motivation, better mood, and so forth. So I would be lying if I said that I didn't expect none of these things, since therefore there wouldn't really be any reason to do one. So I guess that I expect some of the things that I've just mentioned. But even though this might not be a totally life-changing experience, why not give it a try? The second I sat down and realized what I was going to spend my whole day doing, literally nothing, I felt empty. There was a feeling that I should have been doing something else instead, and the whole thing felt meaningless. I forced myself to relax instead of fueling those other thoughts that I was having, trying to focus on my breathing and easing the tension in my muscles. I also started to sketch out the thumbnail for this video in my notebook, and I got some great ideas while doing so. Looking at the time, I slowly but surely realized how long this was going to take. This was when I got an extreme sense of FOMO, fear of missing out, and this phenomenon alone can explain why we're constantly on our phone. Well, because we want to be the first person to know if something happens. Whether it's important or not, that doesn't really matter. We don't like to miss out on things. It gives us a sense of exclusion. One of the hardest things throughout this detox was without a doubt not falling asleep. It's the perfect environment. It's dead silent, nothing to do, and many places to sleep. The trick was to not stay at the same exact spot for too long, instead move around a little. Suddenly I heard someone ring the doorbell, and I knew that my father was supposed to come home around 1 o'clock. But I was sure that it could not be 1 o'clock yet. But I was wrong. The last hours leading up had gone very, very fast, and it didn't even feel like an hour had passed yet. It must have been some sort of a flow state, and this is basically a state where one feels unaffected by time, and so obsessed with doing something, often a task, and as a result lose track of time. This suddenly came to an end, and I was back to the same mindset I had at first. Fortunately, it was time to help my dad a little in the garden, where we're currently building something, and I'm going to make a video on it in the near future. To keep myself occupied, I began stretching a little, and as you can see, I'm not the most flexible person in the world, so this was painful to say the least. At this point, I felt like I had done it all. There was nothing else to do, not any new places to sit, and I remember thinking, why should I continue? I've done it all. But that wasn't really the purpose to begin with. After having done some work in the yard, it was time for dinner, and after eating we went out for a little session until 6 o'clock. And that was about the time when I went back inside. There was only 2 hours left of the detox, and the next to last hour did pass quickly. But the last hour felt different. That hour alone felt equivalent in time as this whole entire day. I grew impatient and time slowed down even more, and minutes suddenly felt like hours. It came to the point where I was convinced that the alarm on my watch was broken, since it had not gone off. But no, the 12 hours just hadn't passed yet. I tried to calculate how much time was left, but I understood that I had no idea. I tried to avoid looking at my watch and just wait it out. Losing track of time in this manner is a very weird feeling. There could be an hour left or a couple of minutes. Fact is, I wasn't sure. After a long time, the alarm finally went off and the 12-hour dopamine detox is finally and officially over. Before starting this dopamine detox, when I was considering doing it for a video, I thought it would be fun to see what kind of results you can expect from doing a dopamine detox like this one, since I had read such amazing things about it. But during this time, I failed to understand what a detox really was. I knew it, but I didn't understand it fully. I didn't consider that I was going to have to do nothing for 12 whole hours, and I didn't realize how long 12 hours really was. Since being sick, 1.5 weeks has gone by incredibly fast, and I kind of figured that these 12 hours would as well. While being sick, I slept a lot, but when I wasn't, I was either watching YouTube or Netflix. And when you do this for a whole day, the day passes incredibly fast, simply because you're constantly entertained, and you lose track of time as a result. But when I realized right before starting the detox, I became very skeptical if I was even going to be able to complete the full 12 hours, or if I was just going to go completely insane. And that didn't, of course, happen, I think, but that was what I was thinking at the time. When I finally had begun the detox, the whole thing seemed utterly meaningless and a total waste of time. But thankfully I didn't quit, and slowly but surely I realized what the whole thing was about. At least for me. This past week being sick, what I should have done a lot of was relaxing. But I had done nothing like that. I will say that I have been relaxing physically, but not mentally. My mind was even more chaotic than before I got the cold. In the moment, it did feel like I was relaxing though. But what I was really doing was just distracting and entertaining myself. It was only when I put away all of my electronics, my phone and my computer, that I was able to actually relax, both physically and mentally. It turns out that doing this dopamine detox wasn't as scary as I imagined after all. It was far from fun, but when I was able to actually relax and rest for real, it was quite enjoyable. On a daily basis, we're constantly distracted by what's happening on our phone, from the moment we wake up to the second we fall asleep. But this leaves little room for us to think for ourselves, since we're constantly caught up with what everybody else is doing. Therefore, having the ability to take a break from the constant input and think for myself and affected by everybody else was a very liberating feeling. To be completely honest, I am going to admit that this 12-hour detox probably was a little over the top and really not that necessary. But there was a couple of things that I wouldn't have realized if it wasn't for the detox. If I wouldn't have stuck to the detox and instead quit, I wouldn't have experienced the same level of peacefulness as I did. And it did take about an hour to get to that point. This is rarely something that we do on a daily basis, being hours offline away from our phone. I don't think that I will be doing another 12-hour dopamine detox anytime soon, but I will make sure to give myself more time offline to relax from now on. There is a sweet spot though, and I do believe that you can get similar results from doing a complete 12-hour dopamine detox without doing the 12 hours. You could, for example, do a dopamine detox for 1 to 3 hours. This probably wouldn't be completely true to the origin of the dopamine detox, but I am convinced that you can get similar results without having to do it for a whole day. And as always, I want to thank you for staying till the end of this video, and I hope you did get something beneficial out of it.